Hey there. Popping in real quick to remind you that Bonfireside Chat is actually part of a larger network of podcasts. If you like this, you might enjoy shows like Abject Suffering, which is our comedy show about bad games, or even Monster in My Podcast, which is our thrice-weekly, bite-sized exploration of the monsters from the second edition Monstrous Manual. You can find that and so much more at Duckfeed.tv. We enjoy making them, and we think that you're going to like them. Once again, that is Duckfeed.tv. Thanks.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
What? Gone all the way to Irithyll, has he? There can't be much left of that frozen sprawl. The old rat. Oh, he's gone off the deep end this time.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
My name is Bob Mackey.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is an outriding favorite.
Yes, and this week we are talking about the first portion of Irithyll of the Boreal Valley. And as you heard, we're joined by Bonfireside Chat alumni, Bob Mackey. Hey, Bob, thank you.
Hello, everybody. I unfortunately am not up on Dark Souls 3 lore as much as I was with the previous game, so I choose to call this area Santa's Nightmare Village.
So for the first clue that you're not up on the lore is that it's not called Dark Sword.
Dark Sword. Oh man, I'm on the wrong podcast.
Dark Sword 3 is totally different, and
that's a Sonic the Hedgehog game, I think.
Maybe
Sonic Dark Sword.
Oh.
Yeah, people know you. The Duckfeed Alumni Association has been calling you day and night to try to get donations. But for people who maybe don't, can you say how people might know you on the internet?
Oh yeah, I co-host the classic gaming podcast Retronauts. I did it for One Up for a while, and now I do it independently with my boss Jeremy Parrish. I've been on a lot of your podcasts, and I also host the weekly Simpsons podcast, Talking Simpsons, that goes through every Simpsons episode in order.
Yeah.
So I've been all around this here internet of ours.
Fantastic. Yeah, and on every season of the show.
Yeah, that's true. I think, I haven't missed one yet.
No.
What a nice parody that the first episode of the show you're on was the Dark Souls 1 Anne Orlando episode.
Yes, I was just making a note of that. I was not supposed to be on this one even, so I guess it kind of worked out in a strange way.
Yeah, it's fate. It's convergence. It's going to happen no matter what. Yeah. We should probably say as well, I don't want to get away too quickly from the introduction of Bob, but we are beyond the spoiler wall. Just like we passed through an invisible barrier to get into this area, all bets are off. So this is your official warning if you care about anything from here until the end of the game.
Yeah, they gave us the spoiler doll. So we can. It's been whispering spoilers to us, and we can now walk
through
like
the sulfur.
It smells like sulfur, and it keeps saying my name backwards. It keeps saying my last four of my social security number and my
Urag.
Urag Delifertub.
You've thought a lot about this.
I thought about what my name would be backwards before, because it's pretty great. Delifertub.
It's really easy for me, at least the first name.
Oh yeah,
Sorlock.
But yeah, so you know, people know Bob. We love Bob around here, and really happy to have you back. And
thank you.
yeah, and you know, we wanted to have you for like Uncle Bonesy's House of Tibias last week, but this time it is instead we were in Irithyll. Cole, what did we do last time?
Well,
in that House of Tibias, in the titular tibia.
Yep.
I'm so sad I missed it. I called it the Skeleton Zone when you asked me which one I wanted to do. I
just
put
knew
me
what you
down
meant
for
too.
the Skeleton Zone.
One vote for Skeleton Zone, please.
Yep. Well, we traipsed to the calcium caverns of the catacombs of Karthus, and we defeated the gigantic High Lord Volnir by flushing him into the abyss, and now we ascend from the darkness to one of the most beautiful sights in Dark Souls games and possibly all of games. This is great.
This is my favorite skybox in games.
Yeah.
Get your print screen keys ready, folks, for this one. Or F12, rather.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of kind of before we actually get there, there's a little bit of like traipsing around the tomb. It doesn't really matter, but it does kind of underline, like, I'm still not really sure why this tomb is here, or the catacombs rather. But when you come out, we get to Irithyll, and we know a couple things about Irithyll. So we know that a young sorcerer named Sulyvahn was searching for power and found this artifact of terrible might, this thing called the Profaned Flame, beneath the frozen Boreal Valley. That we don't know tons about. Right. But this granted him this terrible power, which he used to build Irithyll, and within these abandoned ruins here of the old land of the gods. And he established his own church and decided to call himself Pope, call himself Pontiff, because he gets to name himself whatever he wants. It's Sulyvahn land.
Yeah. And if you're getting a strange, familiar feeling walking through this place, no, this isn't like Hade's Tower of Flame. This isn't Eliam Lois. This isn't any number of things that actually look like Anor Londo. This is adjacent to and beneath and in the shadow of and merges with Anor Londo. It, much like that, it is populated by knights and priests who exists to serve Sulyvahn and these ghoulish slaves who kind of like literally disappear into the scenery.
Yes, because they're to be seen or not seen and not heard.
Yep, they're like the slaves from the third Mist book.
Slaves are to be intangible, inaudible, invisible. In what's unsmellable? Anosmial or like something like that?
Maybe.
Hypoallergenic.
Yeah, gotta get those hypoallergenic slaves, like the kind of Dr. Evil had. And so this is the birth. This is where Aldrich has come from. We've heard a lot about Aldrich throughout the game, who is Sulyvann's buddy, and Sulyvahn either manipulated. I mean, there's some kind of back and forth on this. Either manipulated or cooperated with to install in the Cathedral of the Deep, where he became powerful by devouring men, and then Sulyvahn manipulated him into becoming a Lord of Cinder to prolong his rule through literally eating gods.
Right.
Which we'll get into more of that next episode, but. That's a lot of stuff for when we said the spoiler warning was there. So I mean, we'll talk about a lot next episode, but just a little bit. Like the Anor Londo stuff is not subtle in this area.
No,
but
I was going to ask you guys, like, when did it become apparent to you where you were? I mean, there are some obviously like smack you in the face moments, but I'm just curious, like, when did it hit you? Almost immediately, or
no? So for me, it wasn't immediately because we had those. Hade's Towers of Flames and Eliam Lois, like areas that looked like Anor Londo prior to me. So I was just like, oh, they're fond of this kind of architecture. The part it hit me, and this might be embarrassingly late, so if anybody wants to make fun of me, they can, is the knight saluting the picture of Guinevere.
Oh, no, that was me. That was my moment. I was like, now I feel stupid.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, okay.
Yep. No, it was the same for me. It was that room, and like even coming up through the kitchen and really seeing like the wallpaper, I was like, oh, this is kind of like that weird little room where Sigmire was standing. Like this is like livable space. That's weird. Mm-hmm. And then you just look and see, oh, there's the painted world. Oh, there's Guinevere. Like.
It's a really cool moment.
Yeah.
When it happens. And it's still like I believed it and I knew it then. And then next episode when the actual title card comes up, it was still like a cool moment for me.
Yeah.
Like it's like totally worked on me. Like I was like, as much as this entire season I've been really critical about the callbacks in Dark Souls 3, this totally works for me. Like this feels like repurposing and contextualizing an area that I know really well in a way that's like totally successful.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we all had the same moment because I was feeling insecure. That's the reason I asked.
I'm sure there are people out there who I used the binoculars on one of the bridges and noticed that it had the
spiral staircase.
Yeah.
I looked at the skybox.
Yeah. I would. How would you even? To me, it's like we have so many of these big kind of vaulted cities in the series that they do kind of blur a little bit together.
Like there is Anor Londo like fatigue. To the point where I guard my heart around this kind of stuff until just basically to show me the body, right? Show me the body and I will understand that he's dead. Yeah, that's the way that I felt, and we see the body quite literally. Yeah,
and body's a good way to put it. Of this area. Yeah. So when you come out of the catacombs, as we mentioned, we get the skybox, which I know we talked about being really good, but just I want to camp out on it a little bit and describe it because I have an affection for winter areas in general in games. I think that's like the prettiest landscape you can have in real life or video games.
Right. I do too. I love the painted world in Dark Souls, not just for its Demon Souls callback, but it was just a very pretty and different place in terms of the rest of the game.
Yeah. Eliam Lois as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
It just feels cool when you enter into this entirely different biome, And I was thinking about it, why it's so cool to me, and part of it is that in real life, being out in the snow and nastiness is unpleasant. So it's kind of nice to have this unlimited exploration of an area that would be hostile in real life. That happens in video games all the time. Like, I don't walk around in the lava zone in real life. But this is actually something I see all the time, and it's like, that's real pretty. I want to look at it out a window, but if I go out there, it's really unpleasant.
Yeah.
So it kind of has this, like, it's relatable in a way, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, Gary, we are both transplants from the Midwest, and I think I use these areas to get like it's a winter simulator. Like I miss seasons, but I don't want to experience them. So let me just stick my toe in to just how they look.
Yeah.
I wish there was a day, like being on the West Coast, there was one day of like terrible Midwest winter. I mean, the death toll would be enormous. I don't actually wish it to be true, but I wish that
sledding. Oh boy.
Yeah, just sledding for one day. How many lives that's worth? Rosebud.
Something that I love about winter zones in games, and this actually in particular too, is it's almost always a drastic shift in color palette, and also a dramatic limiting of the color palette as well. I always like that when a game makes that choice to
the cool thing is it happens in real life too. Like when you walk out in a day where there's like huge snow cover and it's like everything is muted. So there's a reduction in real life color palette, and then the way that sound travels when snow is on the ground, the way it's like baffled.
Well, yeah, even and also like cold air conducts sound better too.
Yeah,
like
so sound just moves differently. Like everything is different, and like I love that it happens in video games and in real life.
Yeah. No, it is great. And this is actually like a really nice counterpart to that first reveal, because, the Anne Orlando reveal after, the depths and Blighttown and Sens and all of that, that was another shift in color palette too. And this is kind of like the converse of that. Instead of being sun drenched, it's moon drenched, and you have, this beautiful atmospheric effect, and you have like Aurora Borealis at this time of year, just twinkling above you. Like they just basically upped the majesty.
It has a good effect because you hit it as soon as you get out of the skeleton zone. Just like bricks and bone and just grays and browns and whites, and then it's a completely different color palette. Yeah, you're right.
And boom, it's super cool. They also do this they extend the shock and awe stuff to the gameplay as well, because you have to cross this gigantic bridge here. And out comes, as you get halfway to this bridge, like walking towards the city, it's a really nice kind of framed picture. A beast spawns behind you that is invisible, Sulyvahnn's beast, who to me looks like a cross. In the notes you have it as a Bloodborne monster. I think it looks like a cross between a Bloodborne monster and a gaping dragon.
Yeah, well, his chest is super gaping. Super gaping. Yeah. When
I first saw this, I was like, oh, they're explaining the origins of gaping dragons now. And then that turned out not to quite be true, but he's got a gaping dragon chest. But he has the same moveset as the watchdog of the old lores, more or less.
Yep, and he's just as much of a son of a bitch.
He's a real pain in the dick. I think you're meant to run from this guy. You can fight him, of course.
But, I did run from him.
Yeah.
I think I could be just reading into this, but I had a big problem with Anne Orlando from Dark Souls 1 where there was that one stretch of bridge where you just ran for, I don't know, like a minute or two to get to the boss again. The Ornstein and Smo run, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to do on that bridge, and this feels like here's something to do on a bridge, but you probably don't want to do it.
You piece of shit.
Escape.
Yeah, there's always something to do on that bridge, but if you want to do it, it's up to you.
Well, so it is encouraging you to run, and I love the fuck you if you haven't gotten the small doll.
So I didn't go here first. Does the beast still spawns if you don't have the doll?
Oh yeah, and he will press you against the wall.
Oh shit! Because at the end of this bridge, I mean, we have a little bit more bridge business to do. But,
for sure.
At the end of the bridge, there's a gigantic it's not a fog wall, it's another kind of like force field.
Yeah.
That is up that you have to have this doll to get through. And we talked about the doll when we got that back from the Cathedral of the Deep. That's something that Pontiff gave to his most trusted servants and citizens, so they'll always know that Irithyll is their home. Right. And it whispers to them that Irithyll is their home, which is super cool. So if you have that, you can get through. But if not, you're just going to get caught between like a force field and a beast place.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, this thing, it has that same moveset. It attacks with lightning, which is an element we haven't had to deal with too much. It's always rare in a Dark Souls game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And did either of you get hit by his instant kill or his massive damage critical attack thing?
I just ran the hell away from him, so I didn't get a chance to actually see his moves outside of YouTube videos.
He takes you into his mouth, and it's almost cartoonish. Like it's you trying to press his jaws open as they close on you.
That's pretty good. I did not have that happen. It's weird because it's kind of a good arena for them. Only because it's contrasted later.
Yeah.
But these guys are easier to fight, I think, in a narrower space than a wide open one.
Yeah.
Because they can't, with their limit, when they do their little charge, they're kind of limited where they can do it. So I didn't have too much of a hard time with this guy the first time I decided to fight him. But before that, I just ran.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to deal with it. I wanted to get to the next bonfire, even though there's a bonfire right before here, which is like directly after the last bonfire, and then a bonfire right after it.
Yeah. With it, I think you can actually see it with the binoculars.
There's another one you can see too. Like when people are like, "Oh, there's one bonfire you can see from the other one." It's like, no, there's like 3.
Yep. And that's fine.
It's fine. It's just funny.
Yep. Killing this guy gets you the Pontiff's right eye ring, and that is a companion to what we got from Vort. And this thing used to be a person.
Yeah. Poor guy.
Poor dude.
The reason why you might want to fight this instead of run away is because there's some NPC business. We talked. I can't remember the last time we talked about Cirrus.
With Rosaria.
There we go. Yeah. So she has a summon sign that shows up on this bridge after you kill the beast. Not a summon sign, a reverse summon sign.
Right. Like
a suction sign.
Yep. A beckoning sign.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can get sucked into her world to help her fight Creighton. Creighton from Dark Souls 2. He's back. He survived. And he is one of the Rosaria's fingers, which are Cirrus's enemy.
Right.
We don't find out a lot more, or anything else really about Creighton.
Right.
His armor and stuff is very vague. But you can help her fight him, and it's kind of a good fight. Anytime you have to fight with Cirrus, because this will happen again, you have to be very careful about managing her HP because she's not. So there's strategies that involve black eyeing out so she doesn't die in that instance, and then trying again until you can properly aggro whoever she's fighting.
Yeah, and that is especially difficult with Creighton because he throws undead hunter charms.
Yes.
Yeah, he's throwing those out like candy at a parade.
Yeah. And you do this to get the Silver Cat ring and a dagger you'll never use.
Wait a minute. You said a Silver Cat ring doesn't exist.
I did. I was wrong. I didn't know that at the time we recorded that episode.
Yeah, we corrected ourselves. I was just poking fun.
Oh yeah, I know. We got corrected over and over and over.
Yeah.
So, and over and over and over. But yeah, you get a Silver Cat ring, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Great ring.
Yeah. And this gets you into Irithyll proper, and you get to see whether or not this looks as good close up. And I think it kind of does hold up. This is, a very Bloodborne-y area in a game that very obviously benefited from them learning lessons with Bloodborne, at least with visual design. Lots of fountain plazas and stuff like that. But
yeah, that could be the reason why I liked it so much. I mean, I think I do like the theme and the tone of Bloodborne out of all the Souls-ish games, and it really does evoke that same sort of visual idea, visual motif.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also, knowing that this is Anne Orlando, the thing I like about it is that we never actually set foot in Anne Orlando. We're on kind of rooftops and weird areas above churches. Mm-hmm. This is what the ground would look like. So Anne Orlando presumably had roads and sidewalks and
it wasn't like a Jetsons city.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is that.
At the bottom, Cole. That's how that universe works.
Oh, of course. They established that in the first episode. There was a terrible cataclysm.
We had to work for Gwynsley's gadgets. And that's literally
good.
The only thing I remember about that cartoon. Other than that, all the cartoons from that era, it was actually a boring adult sitcom that was just dressed up for kids.
Yep. But this is pretty great, and we're introduced. We've been exposed a little bit to frost and frostbite up to this point. We get a healing item that will kind of help us kind of deal with it. But man, oh man, is it refreshing to have a new element represented?
It's so barely represented though. I think that the player can only get 1 or 2. There's no spells that do it. The player can get 1 or 2 swords that inflict it.
Mostly from this area, yeah.
Yeah, maybe just the Irithyll straight sword, and then any swords that drop from here. And even you can safely ignore this element.
Right.
the buildup is generally slow enough, at least on my playthroughs, that I would never have to consider using this clump. And then when it shows up, it just kind of like it slows your stamina regen a little bit, but it's not that big a deal.
Right.
It's a big deal in the Vort boss fight because he's kind of concentrated on giving that status to you. But there are no other bosses that are based in it.
Right.
It does feel like not a late edition, but
The
an underdeveloped
dancer, right?
edition.
The dancer.
Does the dancer give you frostbite?
I forget.
The dancer
if she-
spits fire.
Yeah.
She sets the church on fire. Maybe she does, but I thought she had fire powers. We'll have to get back to her.
Yeah.
And then, but I don't remember. But it's pretty rare, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's a cool idea, but I wish it wasn't so safe to ignore. Like I wish that we could be tossing ice balls and shit.
Yeah, I think the Souls from Software, I think, is really more interested in status effects than they are in traditional elemental strengths and weaknesses, which is why I forget if in Dark Souls 3, but at one point there were 3 kinds of poison, like bleed, toxic, and poison. And was that like when did they get rid of that? Was that 2? When they simplified that?
Those 3 are still in this.
Okay.
You can get bleed, toxic, and poison. Toxic doesn't show up very often.
Right.
But
Yeah, okay.
And
I must have missed toxic then.
even Demon Souls had plague too.
Oh, plague, yeah.
Yeah. And bleed, it depends on what it was. So bleed like has gone back and forth on what it does to you. I think that the kind of massive health loss is something that happened a little bit later. I think initially, I think what you're thinking of, Bob, is Demon Souls, where I think that bleed
That's right.
was a health, like I think that drained your health in Demon Souls.
Yeah.
As well. It wasn't like and the stamina regen. So it's kind of like frostbite as well. I could be getting some minor details about this, but regardless of which, they have there's always multiple things that suck out your health. And we're back to standard bleed though, the massive health loss at once.
Frenzy bleed. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so the way through this and the way up past this bonfire is a long staircase that kind of winds around, and is just kind of like a gauntlet that you have to go through.
Yeah, I don't know if we're all on the same page of this. I think this area is really hard.
Oh shit!
I think
Yes.
this I think this gauntlet and then the gauntlet leading to the end of what we're covering, to get up to Sulyvahn are some of the toughest stuff in the series.
Yeah.
Especially when you have the fire guys covering other enemies. That's when it gets really tough.
Well, that's the thing is they mix them up. Like these Pontiff Knights show up in 3s usually. It's usually one who is an aggressive swordsman, one that has a shield that snipes, and then often there is a fire one. We won't run into a fire one until the next kind of set here, but usually it's the 3 of them together, and it's like a real D&D party kind of thing. Like they really complement each other's weaknesses.
Yeah.
I found it pretty hard to draw them away from each other too. I was usually fighting 2 at once.
Yeah, and even drawing within an encounter can get messed up because like the next set will almost always slightly overlap and kind of engage with you. From the previous one. So yeah, this is an incredibly hard area. And what's crazy is they do so much with so little, right? There's not an awful lot of enemy variety here. There's a little bit of variety within the enemies themselves, but like it's pretty much just those knights, the casters, and then later on the slaves and the dogs.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would so these Pontiff Knights, I ended up I like these encounters for how tactically kind of mixed up they are. I have kind of a problem with these. I was complaining about it on the internet, but they really do seem to have like limitless stamina.
Yeah.
And that
they do.
kind of that sucks. Like stop doing that from. I don't think that's a good way to design an enemy where there just aren't breaks. Like if they happen to have started a combo and you get to the side of them, you're good. And you can stun lock them and great. Or if you strike first. But if they hit you with that first thing, they're just going to kind of keep going.
Yeah.
And they're so aggressive and so just have this like limitless well of attacks.
Yeah.
They ended up really kind of pissing me off this run through. Partly because I was for Henri's Straight Sword build update. The nerf has totally fucked that weapon.
Jeez.
And is no longer recommended. I'm getting out damaged pretty quick here, and I'm at like +4 out of +5. Like I've been upgrading it. My luck is at 32.
Good job.
And so I'm putting the points into it. It's just not good enough anymore.
Right.
So
They can summon that fire geyser under you pretty far across the map, can't they?
yeah. When we run into those,
I surprise a lot.
Yeah, because a little bit further up there, so there are three kinds. There are the aggressive ones, like I said, with the swords. Well, actually, there's four. Later, we get ones with scythes that are also tough. Shield guys who are casters generally, and they spit out these balls of frost.
Yeah,
that animation is great. And then these fire priests, who have like a fire staff.
Yeah, the Irithyll fire witch. It sucks because that staff, you can actually get it, but it's a sorcery catalyst and not a pyromancy. Like, it's not even a dual purpose one.
Yeah.
Little bit of a bummer. Those Boreal Immolator, like the fire witches, they remind me of what's the Doom enemy that can like summon up flame around you and you have to keep moving?
Revenant?
Maybe? Yeah, I forget. But man, like they're pretty much just there to complicate the fights with the regular knights because they're area denial. They send out the lines of flame, or they put the ring of flame around you.
Yeah. Yep. And then we end up mixing them up even more because they end up being surrounded by these slaves that we end up show up. Yeah. They're kind of the equivalent of hollows, but they're never by themselves.
Right. And they're mixed in a little bit. I couldn't find like an actual enemy description for them, but like the hag knights, like the witch worshiper kind of ones that are they attack with weapons, so they're not like the slaves, but they're kind of around that second fountain that you get to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
just a minor cool thing about the go ahead, sorry.
Archvile. So not revenants. Revenants are something different.
Okay.
The Archvile is that Doom. Yeah.
There's a wonderful thing. So the Pontiff Knights, they attack really, really quickly. And they justify that in fiction. Their weapons have been eaten by moon bugs, so they're incredibly light, but also very brittle. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I'm sure that applies if you get the item as well. Like, they're probably low durability.
Yeah.
On your way up here, you see a kind of famous like NPC off to the left. There's a little fenced-in area. We'll be able to get here later, but there is the one evangelist that's in this area who is very likely Dorhi. Who is from things. Dorhi is one of the evangelists that got drawn too far into the deep. Yeah. And if you kill her, she drops Dorhi's gnawing, which is great. In my last playthrough, I ended up my miracle playthrough that I tried to do. I ended up using this, and it's just a huge bleed build. It's a really good miracle.
Yeah. And bleed is, at least for me, because I never really do a dex kind of thing, I never take advantage of bleed vulnerability or, like that. So, looking at strategies for different enemies and stuff like, oh yeah, they're crazy susceptible to bleed. It always makes me feel like I'm missing out.
Yeah, it's very useful. And even enemies that are resistant to bleed, like the boss of this area is technically resistant, but the Dorhi's gnawing will proc bleed in just a couple of castings. So I did a lot of sunbrowing, just sitting back and just chunking the boss with bugs by shooting tiny little locusts at them, essentially. Pretty cool.
Yeah. So you kind of make your way through these D&D guys until you get to the foot of this cathedral, and this is a dead end, but there's some really important stuff here. There's like a company of the knights who are going to march up and down, led by this, but there's a shrine, and in front of it is a lightning gem, and much later on you can actually drop down into here and get the Ring of the Sun's Firstborn.
Yes. Yeah. This is up at the top of these stairs, kind of past the little corner and everything. I run it real quick before we move on. Talk about the phantoms.
Oh shit! Yeah, I forgot about those.
Yeah. So there are phantoms that represent all of the outrider knights that we'll see throughout the kingdom that walk on by. They look a lot like, a lot of people were saying this was Ilium Lois, because they look a little bit like the Frog Knights.
Yeah.
Lois, but they are explicitly the outrider knights, and all of them are represented, including the dancer. Ends up walking by. So there are 5, and there are 5 outrider knights in the world.
Wow. I had no idea. That's pretty great.
Yeah, this is them leaving town. They're spirits. We get to see them. And I don't know, the other time we saw this was way back in Kiln of the First Flame.
Right.
With the phantoms hanging around Gwyn, and I don't know what the relation is. Like, those could be those phantoms leaving to go off into the world, because we just ended up finding Black Knights. And I haven't done this, but I wonder if anyone if I remember in Killing of the First Flame, they just kind of spawn forever. I wonder if there are a limited number of them and they correspond to the number of Black Knights out in the world.
That would be very crazy.
That'd be
actually.
super cool.
Get on it, people with more patience than me.
Well, somebody who has a save at the end of Dark Souls 1.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I do not. So,
yeah. But this ring, it'll boost your miracles, and it tells a familiar story. It gets you the talks about the firstborn who was a god of war and then was cast out, and his name was stripped from history. And we're past the spoiler wall here. We now know that is not Solaire, and we're gonna see who that actually is.
Indeed.
Yeah.
In near the end of the season, probably quite a while down the way. What did the first time you went through here, Bob? Like, so this is up until this point, I didn't find Dark Souls 3 like particularly hard. Like, I died on some bosses, but most of the areas, other than some parts of the Cathedral of the Deep, I was pretty cruising by. But just this stretch to get up to the church took me several tries. Did you have a similar experience, or?
I had a very similar experience. This is probably the first major hurdle for me in terms of difficulty. I mean, I was dying previously, but this is the first one where I had to seriously think about: am I using the right weapon? Do I need a different weapon? Do I need some different armor? Like, I was seriously doubting my skills at this point. Coming into this game with like 400 hours of Dark Souls experience, I felt like I was coming up a little short.
You had to put in that even 5. Once you get to 500, it unlocks. That's not
time.
Not remotely true. It is just the fact that these guys all are really dense and have unlimited stamina, I think.
Yeah, especially at that cathedral at the top of the stairs. I was just doing suicide runs to get items. Like I tried taking on those enemies, but it ended in failure every time.
Yeah. What sucks is, and we talked about how when we first played through the game, we never really noticed or didn't feel too much of the burn for the lack of poise. Going back through it with the knowledge of how the system works, man, the fact that they have unlimited stamina, attack so quickly, and just don't stop is kind of made to take advantage of the fact that you stagger.
Yeah,
like for basically no reason.
I was using a strength build, and I think it was Vort's hammer, the totally awesome ice hammer you can get by beating the first boss in the game.
Yeah.
And that weapon is designed to take advantage of staggering enemies, so it really did not help me here.
I thought when I first went through, I was playing a strength build, but because I had put all my points into strength to hold my gigantic fuck off weapon, I didn't have good armor. So the first time I went through, I was like, oh, that's just kind of the price you pay for doing light armor. Of course I'm getting staggered. And then when I went through on that faith build, I had heavier armor, and that's when I kind of knew something's wrong. And this playthrough that I'm going with the straight sword, since I'm just putting points into luck and I don't need any other stat other than regular health and stamina, I am wearing fairly heavy armor and can still medium roll. And it's still not, and this is where I'm feeling it the most. Yeah. And who knows, you could separate the psychology of I know about it now. So maybe there's something psychosomatic there, but it definitely feels like I've seen it not affect every layer of armor, or every amount of armor. And it bums me out. Like, this is something that the first time through, I was like, I still visually love this area and I like the design of these enemies a lot. These encounter designs I don't love. I like the mix up. I don't like the way that these guys can just attack you for days.
Yeah. So the way forward, because there really is no way to progress through this square.
This is very linear. This entire area. We're gonna go through a really circuitous route that feels like nonlinear, but is actually just the only way forward.
Yeah, with no doubling back or anything like that, really, either. A couple of shortcuts that kind of close the loop, but the way forward is through this building called Yorshka's Church, and we're going to meet Yorshka later. This is kind of related to Painted World kind of stuff, but there's some weird stuff happening in this church for some very kind of obscure quests.
Yes. So this is if we're following Henri's proper quest, we see her or him here inside the church, and at this point, this is if back in the day, back in Skella Zone. If we didn't tell her where Horus was or anything. He's down in an area we're going to cover a little bit later called the Smoldering Lake. And we can kill him. We can just not tell her any number of those things, but we don't send her to him. If we show up here, she's just kind of hanging out. She's still pursuing Eldrick. But there's a really, really, like I find to be like really, really obscure articulation point here. Is that, am I being crazy? Like, is that something that, because I was talking to a friend of the show, Alice, and she's like, yeah, I noticed it right away. And I'm like, you're bragging. like you're to this point, you're just trying to make me feel bad. Because I think this is really, you know, when I talk about Dark Souls 3 NPC quest being really fiddly, like this is really fiddly.
Yeah. I mean, I screwed up every NPC quest in an almost comical way, just like revisiting videos. Like, I could have done that. I could have saved him. What? And this person never showed up for me. Like, I think I missed maybe a substantial chunk of content in the game in my first playthrough just by making logical decisions with these quests.
It is. It's very different than NPC quest lines in earlier games where like you can begin them. It's just the endings are obscure. Here, like the beginnings and middles are obscure as well. So what we're talking about is that Henri is here, and Yuria, who if you've been working with Yuria, you've been hollowing yourself and talking to her. She actually sends an assassin, or if you haven't been working with her, excuse me, she sends an assassin here. So keep in mind, that's one point of articulation. If you're working with her, Henri's safe because she has plans for Henri. If you're not working with her, she sends an assassin here who is using the spell Chameleon. So you have to kind of show up here and attack the statues. Does it happen like after a point, or do you ever get a vision of the statues before the Chameleon?
Not that I know of.
I don't think so either. Like you just have to, like, how paranoid do you have to be? Like, unless somebody leaves a marker for you.
Does the statue look different than the others? I mean, usually when you use Chameleon, your version of the object is like slightly different, maybe like just the tiniest bit different.
All I can think of is if somebody is really attuned to like knowing Chameleon, like if you've dealt with that a lot, maybe you're going to be able to like sense, you know, like a Metal Gear Solid guard, that box shouldn't be there. But like, no, it definitely feels like a stretch to me. And it feels like something that, you know, I haven't done, you know, just a caveat here, I haven't done Yuria's quest. I don't know if like that is something like she implies like, hey, you know, be a shame if something would happen to Henri, or, you know, just like if you know that that's an arrow in her quiver like that, it feels a little bit like a fuck you.
I think it feels really hostile too. It's not, she doesn't say anything about that. I mean, you know that she has these agents out there if you're working with her because you can summon them.
Right. And
eventually, if you're not working with her, she sends some after you, I believe. That never happened with me because I either didn't trigger her at all or I worked with her because, hey, 5 free stat points because they don't disincentivize it at all. Right. So the one time I went through, I just didn't deal with her at all. I did Henri's quest, but I also didn't have her involved. Well, that's not true. I'm trying to think of, I've played through the game now 3 times and I'm trying to get the things mixed up. Regardless, what she doesn't say, like, watch out for Henri. Right. She mentions Henri to you as a possible spouse if you're working with her. But if you're not, she doesn't say, hey, we're going to take care of Henri. Right. So it is, I think this is really, really pretty hostile.
So it's weird. It only works. Like, it only makes sense if you have done Yuria's quest first. Like to know that Henri is in any real danger from Yuria, and that there are these agents that are going to be out there. Like, it's super obscure. Like, it's just off in a corner, and it feels like a way to just like, well, okay, gotcha.
It's another way that I feel like Dark Souls 3 is made to be played multiple times, where like the areas are not huge, but they're very dense. Like there aren't that many of them, but they're very dense. And the NPC quest lines, you're supposed to get these kind of like tantalizing glimpses of them without actually knowing how to finish them. I think the area where it kind of falls down with that, though, is that the step to actually finish them are oftentimes too obscure. Between this and Sigurd's quest, which we're going to get into in an episode or two, how that ends, are just the things that you do are a little bit too much. I think
I have an analogy that might make no sense, but if Dark Souls was like Castlevania 2 in terms of odd puzzles, Dark Souls 3 feels more like La Mulana. I don't know if you guys have played that, but
sure,
that makes
it's like almost indecipherable unless you're looking at a wiki sometimes.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, for sure. So, and Henri doesn't have any like valuable dialogue really here. She gives you a gesture. You talk to her a little bit, but she just kind of says she's still on her way. Right. If you don't let her get killed, you can summon her for help. The other thing we know about this church is it's related to the Moonlight Blades,
Right.
Because we find a roster of knights, which is an item that shows their rankings here, and you also find a covenant of a concord kept.
Yes.
Concord of covenant kept cord, something like that. I don't.
Proof of a concord kept.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that's here. And there's a mysterious room that we're going to be seeing later that has the obligatory 2-1 or 2-2 jump or
yes.
drop.
Yeah. We can walk up to these little stairs to see where we're going to jump down to.
Yep.
Out back there's a graveyard. If you fought what's his name? The guy from Dark Souls 2, who's Creighton. If you fought Creighton, he'll invade you here in the graveyard. And pop out, but otherwise you're just grabbing a bone, homeward bone and a bone shard.
Yeah. Over to the bone zone.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's crazy here is there's a Corvian kind of like kneeling and praying at the large headstone where the bone shard is at. And I don't know what that means. Like, I think it might be a link to the Painted World, maybe, if we're going with that theory.
We didn't talk this. That was the thing that in the episode with Austin Walker, where he was talking about the theory that we bleeped out.
Mm-hmm.
It was the idea that the Painted World is leaked out into the real world. I personally don't think there's enough for that. Mm-hmm. Like, I've read that up a couple times, a couple Reddit threads about it, and it feels really conjectury to me.
Yeah.
Are we to believe there's some sort of magic turpentine involved?
Yeah. Oh, you mean dip?
We should.
Yeah.
No, that's real. That's real.
Okay. We should get Mickey on the case.
Yeah. When I killed your precious Gwendolyn, he sounded just like this. I don't. I've read the thing and I don't necessarily buy it, but maybe it's fun to read.
Yeah.
And it would explain the Corvian here. But other than that, I don't know about it.
Yeah. Out back behind this graveyard down, again, we're in the underbelly of the city, and it's looking a little bit less opulent. We find these some alleyways with these dogs, which have vaguely human heads. They
very human heads. They have like skull heads.
Yeah. So initially, I'm just thinking, like, why are these dogs kicking my ass? Because dogs are, that's a known thing. They've been in every one of these games. No, these are different.
Cole, does that in real life? Do you think if a dog had a human head, he'd be more likely to kick your ass?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably from fear, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what to do.
They could at least taunt you at the same time. All chasing after you.
Bark, punk.
Who's a bad boy? You're a bad boy. Unless it was the dog human head from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And that guy I could not be scared of.
This section's very brief, but it reminded me of a lot of the Lost Bastille, just like alleyways and dogs, like corners.
Oh yeah. I could definitely see that.
Yeah,
for sure. So we have these slave hollows that are invisible. They're just floating eyes, and you can't lock onto them until they kind of emerge.
Yeah, until you're like basically within arm's reach.
Yeah, and they're going to be kind of the predominant enemy for this middle section here. That we go down to the waterfront. Past some things, there's just some little bits here. This is where we, or a little bit back is where we get down to Dory's. Here there is this little dark room, like this barn.
Yeah.
You go in that is just stacked with these things. And there are ones that are crawling as well that are similar to the crawling corpses from Bloodborne.
And so what's crazy is like when you walk into this dark room and you kind of look down and you see the white eyes with the black clouds kind of like blowing around their heads, they look like humanity sprites.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't quite catch that when I look down on him. Possibly because I always pop out the torch when I get here, but my eyes ain't so good. But yeah, I did not notice that. That parallel.
It's for a brief moment, but it hit me pretty hard the first time and then this time as well because I kind of forgot about these guys.
Oh, the humanity sprites?
Oh no, not the humanity sprites. The like these guys, these guys. Yeah, I forgot about the details of the way they looked. I remember fighting them, but yeah, I think
the mystery of the darkness is supposed to make them a lot more intimidating because they're pretty easy even in great number.
Yeah. You can kind of carve your way through here. It's kind of a pain to run through if you end up having to do that for some reason, because if one of them tags you, again, no poise. But if you are just going through like even remotely slowly, you can take these guys out pretty easily.
Yeah.
We get another tie. We learn a little bit more about Yorshka. We find her spear here, which is like a hammer spear thing that has a skill called Pacify, which makes me think of Police, which is kind of what the Dark Moons are.
Mhm.
That lets you drain enemy FP with each attack.
Yeah.
Which feels strictly PvP, of course.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Never really used it. It doesn't really scale that well, honestly, like a lot of spear stuff. Out back here, when you actually get to the waterfront, this is where
This is great.
Yeah, this is fantastic. So we're down at this kind of like sparkling creek, and there are what appears to be drowning bodies or drowned bodies, kind of submerged back around, like towards the walls and stuff.
Before we get to the twist of those things real quick, I want to talk about just very briefly how cool it is to find like a very beautiful body of water and then find something dead inside it.
Oh yeah.
Like how cool like a scary moment that is, because it's like, oh, this like is very peaceful and stuff, and then you look and they're just and you see tons of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like, oh, there are like half a dozen of these like corpses floating in this water. That's so like that feeling of like corruption and poison. It's like the urban legend about like drinking the cask of rye and then finding the dead body preserved in it.
Yeah.
That kind of feeling of like, oh, this thing I've been kind of waiting in that looks kind of refreshing is actually full of dead.
You're walking along the railroad tracks with your friends and you decide to take a dip, and then all of a sudden you're covered with leeches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then you find a dead body, but that's what you were out there for.
Yeah. You have to go get a leech at you.
So this is off topic, but that movie made me never want to jump into a non-chlorinated body of water. I don't think I ever have, actually, just because of Stand By Me.
If I can't see the bottom, I don't come a knocking.
If I don't know the leech population.
Yeah. How many? I need a leech 0 thing. Or there needs to be one leech on the other side of the pool that I can see at all times. Leeches, or I'm always scared of broken bottles. Like some hillbilly jamboree happened out there, and somebody threw a couple of glass bottles in the lake, and then you just can't see the bottom. You step down on a Miller High Life bottle, and then like that's just it for your foot, and you've got like river filth inside it.
Yep.
So yeah, do not swim in natural bodies of water.
You've got incurable hillbilly diseases now.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a werebilly. Even only overalls feel comfortable now. I don't know what's wrong with me.
You got Hatfield Jacob disease.
Even a beach
straw.
Even a beach, I was just at the beach last week as when we were recording, and going out and looking at like, oh, they're like dolphins like 30 feet that way, and they're playing and taunting me with their majesty, and then you look down like, oh, I'm surrounded by jellyfish.
Yeah, it's the worst, man. Like we do our game retreat and we go out to the beach, and like the first year we were there, it was like really pretty and great. Second year, dead jellyfish city. Like something happened. There was some kind of story that the news was not reporting about the jellyfish community because there were
some kind of civil war.
Yeah, like, whoever wins, we lose. It was because there was no less than like 70 dead jellyfish on the beach. It was awful. Like I was trying to look around at all these beautiful rocks and like windswept vistas, and I was too scared of stepping on a monster to do it. Like, so gross.
Make love, not man of war.
Yeah. This year we're going to the mountains where the only thing we have to worry about is like brown recluses and bears. So, God, nature sucks.
Burn it all down.
Yeah. No thanks. Anywho,
man, I forget.
So you see these corpses and you think they're just fine corpses. You're gonna go check them out because corpses are great. And then go ahead, Kole. What were you saying?
No, and then all of a sudden they get up and it's a spider ringu. Is what it is. They're these sewer centipede things. They're women with long black hair, kind of a similar gaping dragon kind of chest on the bottom of them, like the same like undulating spinneret kind of stuff, but they're. I can't get a sense of how many legs they are, but they're spider ladies, and they will attack you and spit poison, and they're fucking everywhere.
They're everywhere. They're really easy, but they're very intimidating.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I really like. Is the because again, I don't feel like this game needs to be harder. I want it to be creepier.
Yeah.
And these guys do a great job of that. I love these things.
Am I crazy that I think it'd be pretty great to crack off one of their legs and suck the meat out of that bad boy?
It's definitely sentient. So I don't know. Crazy is the right word. Yeah,
It's the Anne Orlando buffet.
Yeah, I saw one of them write a song, Cole. Like I don't.
One of them.
They're very. They have hopes and dreams.
You're right,
So-
Gary. They are easy to fight, but I just wanted them to die so they would stop moving and making noises.
Yeah.
shit.
What a cool thing for a video game to engage, right? Like this idea that like my motivation is not survival. My motivation is not having like the same motivation you have when you actually see a spider or like
Yeah.
a big scary bug in your house and you don't want to do the good thing and like let it outside. It's like, oh, this is too scary to live. Like
Yeah,
I can't
like
have
a
this
little,
near-
a little unearthly house centipede. It's like you have too many legs. You're moving in a strange way. I can't comprehend this.
Yeah, and
must
I
die.
can't have my back to you. Like I just don't know what you'll be doing, and that's how these things feel like to me. Like, what am I going to do if I turn my back to go get this treasure over here? I got to go pick up a great heel, and all you're going to do is like I don't know, like have a meeting. Any number of scary things that these things could do.
You go to a meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Somebody hasn't heard of Slack. Use offer code Duckfeed. So you do actually find great heal, and you find out one of these slug priests from Rosaria's chamber.
Right.
I have no idea why.
Nope. I think that it just like maybe he accidentally stepped on a catapult and he landed here.
At first, it reminded me of the Bloodborne DLC with the snail lady falling from the sky.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, did I miss something? Like, it triggered and I was looking at one of these house centipedes and it fell from the sky. But no, it's just here. And like, there are ties, right? Like those things are kind of tied to Guinevere, who is tied to this area. But there's no like, there's just links. There's not sentences in between. It's just like a big blank line that you could put something there, but I have no idea why it's here.
Yeah.
Um,
So Bob, you avoided the Sulyvahn beast just like I did. How surprised were you when he was like, "Get over here"?
Yeah, that is something I was not expecting at all.
I had no idea. I never suffered that thing to live. Like he spawns down here.
Yeah, you didn't?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's bonkers. No, I didn't.
So-
I ran from him, but I always came back and killed him before too late because I am a
So does he
hateful
only
being.
spawn there if you don't kill him on the bridge?
Yeah.
Okay, that explains it. Yeah, I was like, I thought I was out of that situation, but here he comes.
Wow, he's sorry. Yeah.
Yep. So you'll
But I
just
was
be
making a lot of suicide runs down here too to get items with that guy. Like I never fought him. I probably should have. I probably could have taken him on.
Yep. No, so if you kill the beast up on the bridge, you're fine. This is just a big open water area. If you don't, he appears in a puff of smoke just like he does up there, and he moves at full speed, even though you can only move at full speed on those little islands that are like only barely submerged. And you know, this is a far less advantageous place to fight him. I don't know if you can, go back up to the bridge and re-engage him there or not. But
he
yeah.
teleports around.
Yeah, it is a real dick move. A very entertaining one, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of how in Scholar of the First Sin, where they would have Penetrator show up at bad times.
Oh yeah. For sure. Yeah, very well. So I didn't have him show up for me, but that's pretty cool. I like that happens. Because I love that in with a Pursuer like popping out at random places. There's regardless of whether you fight him or you fought him before, you can head down. If you start heading down from here, there's a bonfire that's useful to grab. It actually leads to a different area we're going to cover in an episode or two.
Yeah.
But it's good to hit the bonfire. You actually had to go in through this sewer that's full of shit in order to get actually into like a manor, like a proper area of this.
There are two sets of ashes down here, potentially. The excrement covered ashes, which continue their fascination with making hollows seem nostalgic for bodily functions. Oh, to savor the sweet pungency, but one more.
Yeah, that's very strange.
And then this is the end of Greyrat's quest.
Or it can be.
Okay.
Like if you so you can send him to Irithyll. So we sent him to the undead settlement. He's fine. If you send him to Irithyll, you have to either have Sigurd here. Sigurd will protect him, or you tell Patches about him, and then Patches will go protect him. If you send Greyrat here without either of those things, he dies here.
Okay.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah, I mean, because it's NPC quest lines in Dark Souls 3 are incomprehensible. Like you're just gonna end up with a dead, empty fire link on your first playthrough. But that's how it works. Like he needs a bodyguard.
Yeah.
So the other, and then after this, just so we don't have to talk, because there's no dialogue or anything. If you send him to Lothric, nobody can protect him in Lothric.
Right.
So if you send him to Lothric, you're just asking for him to die, and you'll find his ashes there.
Yeah.
So we head up from this basement full of Ringoos to find a kitchen. And if we have been following Sigurd's quest line, he is sleeping in front of a fire, and he has made some soup for us.
And so he talks, like he admits, like, yes, I make a great Estus soup. And I think, like, so there's something about the phrasing and the way that he says it that makes me think, oh, this is his recipe, just like Siegbrow is.
Yeah, yeah, he's a cook.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty strange.
But this is where he talks about, like, oh, did you hear the profaned capital is below here? He talks about an old friend and, how he's on a quest to fulfill a promise that he really doesn't want to fulfill.
Yeah. Yep. And we'll get to that in an episode or two as well. Yeah. Where we'll talk about, and that's where his quest line ends.
Yeah.
But here he just kind of keeps it going. He gives you the spell Great Force and another Siegbrow so you can add to your collection. And I mean, it's a useful item. It's unique, or it's there's only 2 of them, so you don't want to use them.
Yeah.
But for now, he's just kind of here to give you a resting spot and let you have some soup. I like that soup is there because the next part of this game is hard, and if you're running through the sewers without bothering to engage the spider ringos, and you get spider ringo. Fellas, something's happened. I can now drum 8 tomes at a time. Like it's an octopus's garden, but on land. Yeah. If you just run through there and get tagged, you end up at full health for this next little bit.
Yeah,
which I like.
Yeah,
so this is my favorite. This is my favorite space of Estus soup. I think this is the most tactically generous.
Right.
Placement.
Yeah, it's a good Estus snack. Before a remarkable set piece that is, I think, remarkable and remarkably subdued.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is environmental storytelling 101. Like, what are we going to do? Fuck it. Just put up some art and then have an enemy buy it.
Yeah. It is. So you walk up into this room, and we get the Silver Knight here. And you can see from the side of the room, he is looking at a painting of Guinevere.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of staring at it. It's super good. And I'm glad that this is all when everyone figured it out. So nobody has to feel like they're in the slow zone here. Did you guys, so the second question though is, did you guys get caught by the trap?
I did.
I did as well.
The archer?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I good on you. Like points to you, Dark Souls 3, because I was definitely going to go. I mean, because I wanted to, my motivation was so strange because it's like, I need to kill this guy and check out this room.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, there's other paintings? Shit. Like, I need to get out the binoculars. Let me rush this Silver Knight. And not only is the Silver Knight, have an expanded moveset from the old Silver Knights, like he has lightning powers in his sword, but there's an archer covering him.
Right.
So
yeah, I had the same impulse as you, Gary. Like, I realized where I was, and I realized how I need to start paying really close attention to every little piece of the environment. So I wanted him dead, just to be safe to do that.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it works very well. I wanted to be able to sit on those chairs that were in the room. They looked very comfortable. But you can go up and kill that archer, and he's got another buddy up there, and this is a straight up great arrow kind of thing. Like they will knock you over as you approach, which is a bit of a bummer. Also, on that upper floor there are urns that have cold in them.
Yes.
Hey, this is where we keep our cold.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the ice box.
Yep.
Throw one of these in a cooler. They're all set for Siegbrows all weekend.
Yeah. So let's talk about the paintings and then talk about what we find in the chest upstairs. So the paintings, I was able to identify what looks like Irithyll. Okay, fine, good. That's totally the Duke's archives. I can tell by the dome and the tower. Okay.
Yeah.
What appears to be Gwendolyn, I think.
So I think that that people have said that's actually Nashandra.
So I thought that, but that doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense, but that's the other theory.
Yeah,
I'm just putting that out there. I don't think it's Gwendolyn either, though. I think that it might be God, what's her name? The angel lady because this area ends up having ties. Sulyvahn has ties to Lothric, who is here. So I wonder if it is
the queen lady.
Yeah, well, not the queen, the lady who like treated with angels,
Yeah.
who caused the Civil War.
It's like
whose name-
Meredith or something like that. I forget.
I mean, yeah, it's escaping me right now. People are flipping out.
Yep.
But the because she's not lore insignificant. I just forgot that this painting was here and that we'd have to talk about her. Yeah, I don't know that it's Gwendolyn possible. But
there's also a throne here, and then a picture of Anne Orlando, kind of in its heyday.
the other reason why people thought that might be Nishandra is because the throne recalls the throne of Want. It's not exactly the same. It doesn't have the smaller throne carved into it,
Right.
but the lighting is the same as the Chamber of Want.
Yeah, those are
Things
my first impulses. Actually, I just talked myself out of it.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. Could be. If you guys have theories or if you guys know, definitely write in.
Yeah.
And let us know. It is kind of silly to have this this series of paintings that are just like, hey, this is where you're really at.
It's like an evidence dungeon. Like all that they're missing is like red yarn.
Yeah. It's very like because just having a picture of the city you're in inside a building of the city is really kind of weird to me. Yep. It's like in Star Trek: The Next Generation, where there are all those paintings of space.
Yep.
There are windows, and then there are also paintings of space. It's pretty silly, but like still really cool. If I'm being cynical about it now, in the moment my jaw was on the floor. Like it was like super cool. I was like, oh shit! Like things just got real, and that continues if you go upstairs where you can fight this archer. There are 3 chests here that have significant items: a divine blessing, Smo's great hammer, and the Leo ring. Which is like, ooh, those items, those guys. I was half expecting to fight Ornstein and Smo at the end of this.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, I thought like that would be the boss of this area. Because I knew Sulyvahn would be involved, but I didn't know how far this stretched. I knew Eldrick and Sulyvahn were definitely bosses, but I was like, oh, the boss is going to be Ornstein and Smo. Like, fucking weird.
Like on each other's shoulders or just inside of a giant suit of armor.
Like a giant trench coat. One of them like making a fake mustache with his finger. Hello.
Yeah. Sneaking into a movie.
Yeah. How great would it be if they had just if Sulyvahn had like the animated armor of Ornstein and Smo or something like that, like we eventually see with Dragon Slayer later on, and like the fight with Sulyvahn was he sicked them on you and cast spells from the sidelines, and if you defeated them, then he would surrender, and they would give you a little bit more story, and then you had the option to spare him or get him.
That'd be kind of neat.
I don't know.
I like that idea.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be.
I'm gonna go learn Unity.
I mean, and part of like the BRB learning Unity. Yeah, and we'll get to that Dragon Slayer armor. I don't think that's as cut and dry as Ornstein's armor as that, but it is similar. It is another Dragon Slayer, I think, the same kind of design.
Yeah.
But anywho, so pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You head up out of here and head to the final stretch, which is just another really tough gauntlet. A really long staircase full of dogs and casters covering each other.
I used my football strategy for this one and just plowed through it.
Yep. Set your shoulder and go. I'm very happy to hear that both of you had trouble with this, because I banged my head against it. I think like I died 5 times going through it. It was crazy. It's
really devious. And having the casters be invisible makes a huge difference, because when you are engaging one of them, trying to take out one of them while distracted by dogs, you don't know where the bullets are coming from or where the magic missiles are coming from. You can't judge that on your approach. So they don't shoot until you get up to the caster that you're going to take out, and then the other caster is covering them. There's a dog that acts like 100% not like a dog and just hides behind like a statue at the top of the first landing. And just waits for you to get past there just to stunlock you so you can get kind of stunlocked by a magic missile. Like, It is so tactically intense. Like, this I actually really like because nobody feels like they're cheating. Mm-hmm. It just feels like it's a really, really hard run that you have to be very careful. You either have to run through, which I'm glad that's an option, or you have to just very carefully plan to get through. Much harder with no ranged weapons. The luck build I'm doing now does not have ranged weapons at all.
Yeah, nor does mine.
And it is much trickier. If you can't do anything like that.
And so I felt a little bit dumb, but I'm very happy to hear because they're very humble enemies on their own. They just arrange them diabolically.
Yeah, which is great. Like that's how you should repurpose easy enemies.
Yeah.
You know, is to find new configurations and stuff rather than just stacking thousands of them up on top of each other, you know? Yeah. This is a really good way to do it.
Mm-hmm. So at the top of this just hellish run, there's a shortcut you can open up that'll end up getting you to back to the Yorshka's bonfire, which is super useful. You're no longer making the run through the manor, which I ended up having to do much more than I'm comfortable admitting. And you also get kind of to the front doors of the cathedral for an awesome little mini boss fight with one of these Pontiff Knights with a scythe.
Yeah. This guy's a real son of a bitch. And again, just really aggressive, and he can dead angle you. Because my strategy for these guys is to try to get to the side of them. Like if they happen to do a 2 or 3 hit combo and I can beat it to the side, then I win. If they tag me first, then I'm in trouble and I have to kind of roll away and try to heal. But the scythe has such a wide angle of attack that it will clip you on the sides as you attempt to roll to the side. After you get past this guy, you get up to the top of the church. You can head back down. You can get that Sun's Firstborn ring. You can open up another shortcut back to the church, to Yorshka's church. But we're in front of the boss fight for Sulyvahn. It should be noted real quick before we go in. If you summon Blackhand Gotthard, not Gotthard is such a weird. The fourth grader in me cannot handle that. Gotthard, you get a gesture. So that's pretty fun. You get the buy my sword gesture, which is a really cool,
nice,
kind of intense thing. But you go through this boss fog into this church to fight the boss, Pontiff Sulyvahn.
Yeah, so in the balance, this might be my favorite boss fight in the game. Actually.
Oh yeah. I've got some mixed feelings on it, but let's go through. It is I like it. So he's in a beautiful arena, like amazing arena, just like a beautiful church, lined pews, and really really awesome framed kind of like composed shot when you first come in of him slowly approaching you from the other side of the room. It's awesome looking.
Yeah, there's no cutscene, notably. It's just this, what appears to be a tiny little guy in this foreshortened perspective. But no, he's actually pretty big, and he's coming at you pretty fast.
Yeah. And he is. This is a sword fight boss. He's really, really aggressive. Part of the problem I have with him is very similar to the problem I have with his knights, which is that sometimes he just kind of keeps going. Like if you get your foot caught on a pew or something like that, or you get up against the wall, I've been stun locked to death in a way that feels kind of shitty. Like he doesn't have downtime the way other duel fights do, you know? Like he does, he does. When he does his jab, like his straight jab is usually a good time to hit him. It's just kind of, there aren't as many times that are open that I would like. His gimmick I really love, but just in his first phase, I get a little bit frustrated by him.
Yeah. So that, you know, I think that it might be another case of like RNG kind of stuff. I never ended up getting him like an infinite loop kind of thing. I did notice, you know, he does rest a lot less. Like I saw that too. For me, that kind of lended more to it feeling like really intense and breathless as a fight. And that kind of made it feel appropriate to me, or that tone and pace felt really appropriate for like what this fight was.
Yeah, I feel incredibly biased when it comes to judging these duel fights because I've probably fought the Fume Knight in Dark Souls 2. I would have to say maybe 60 times before I finished him off. So anything that's better than that, I automatically like, just because that was my own like cross to bear beating that guy.
Yeah,
I have a harder time with fighting this guy alone than I do with Fume Knight.
Wow, yeah, it could be a personal thing.
Yeah, I'd be curious. It's one of those times, like I keep saying in the season, where like I would love to actually see other people fight these things that I have trouble with, and then vice versa. Like things I find very easy, I'd like to see people have trouble with it as well. Like I've aced this guy, or not aced him. I've soloed him, rather. I didn't the first time. The first time I played through, I couldn't. I was so sick of it, and I wanted to see what was beyond that wall so much because of the tantalizing lore stuff that I summoned help. The second time I went through, I was like, I'm gonna fight every boss by myself. And managed to do it, but I find him, like I said, like a little bit overly aggressive, and like you can parry him, which I like bosses that you can parry, but his he just chains attacks so much that the risk for missing a parry is being like you're signing up for more damage than just the initial strike, because he's going to follow it up with another attack and another attack.
I just remember what happened to me the first time I fought him. So I have a killer strategy to beat this boss. The first step is to play Dark Souls 3 before it's released and has a lot of bugs. And then when you get to the boss, he won't be moving at all. And you can just slap him to death, and then he'll die. That's exactly what happened to me when I fought this boss the first time. I just remembered now. Was that a common bug in the game until like a few weeks after release? I remember like bosses would spawn but not move, and you could just whack the hell out of them, and they would die, and you would win. It would just be that simple.
That's what the Bloodborne speedrun is like, and it's really boring to watch because most of them are tricking the bosses into not fully spawning.
Got it.
Yeah, that sounds like much worse than the memory leak bug. In terms of rendering the game.
What happened was his model was just floating around without animating, but he wasn't attacking. It was just like an unmoving model moving across the battlefield.
So creepy.
Yeah.
Super weird. Yeah, I just something about this guy I didn't get that good duel feeling from him. I don't know exactly what it is, but it didn't feel like a fun duel. It felt like so contrast him with the Dancer, which is probably the most similar boss fight in the game. Like I love that boss fight. Yeah. Like that feels appropriate to me. Like that's where I got that sense of like give and take. You know, that I want. I didn't get that from this guy. Yeah.
And so like I'm also partial to this because it feels like a really good iteration on False King a lot.
I don't know about that either, man. I'm not doing it to be contrarian. Like he moves so differently from Alon. Like as somebody who's fought Alon very recently, Alon has 3 moves and one of them is a combo and it's like a 2-hit combo.
Okay.
Pontiff is combo crazy. Like at least when I fought him.
I haven't fought a lot in like 3 years, so it seems like you would know best.
Yeah, it just it felt very similar, and that I
think they're trying to recall it. I think the arena and kind of like his look, like I think that is an intentional thing. But as far as a fight goes, like Pontiff for me, and this totally could just be RNG stuff, right? Like we might have fought just different versions of this guy. Yeah, could have been build, could have been a million things, but was way more into like 8-hit combos, as opposed to Alon, who has a very small amount of moves that are all really, really like pretty devastating. So it becomes like a high risk, high reward thing. Whereas Pontiff Sulyvahn was like chipped me away a lot. Like a lot of like real small combos I had a hard time getting away from.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that is them becoming more confident with animation.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Because I think that, when you have the like, okay, so it's a high risk, high reward kind of thing, with a lot, and the fact that his attacks kind of do so much damage, what you kind of get a little bit of the same thing. Like if you do get caught into one of those combos here, you just meet it out in a different way.
Yeah, it might just be it feels worse, because it's like, oh, I'm desperately trying to block or roll away and nothing is happening. Yeah. In the middle of these hits, or I roll away and then get hit on the side because of a weird hitbox thing with these swords. So it could just feel worse, but be functionally the same. Yeah. That is true. The rest of he's definitely more aggressive than Alon. Like Alon is not a particularly aggressive boss.
Alon will hang back in a way that Sulyvahn will in the second half of the fight, but only because he has his crony there.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing I like about it. So like, I don't dislike this boss. I think I don't think he works really as a dual fight, but I like his gimmick a lot. Which is that halfway through, he sprouts these wings made out of roots. We'll see these. We'll see things that look very similar to these. This is probably related to the Profaned Flame. Yeah. Which is probably related to the Bed of Chaos. Right. What that adds up to, I haven't read a satisfying thing about. But again, like Dark Souls 3, we have a lot of relations without a lot of like concrete ties. Yeah. So some kind of, and the knights that we've seen, the Pontiff Knights, also have roots growing out from under their armor and stuff. So these people are turning into trees. Yeah.
This is the same thing that we've seen with the deacons as well.
Yes.
The fat deacons have roots kind of coming out of them in various places, especially their eyes.
Yes. We'll see more of that next time. So there's something with the Profane Flame that turns people into root monsters. Yeah. The Profane Flame, at this point, we'll learn a little bit more about it. as we go, but it is I think that is widely considered to be like the mystery for Dark Souls 3. Like Dark Souls 3 prominent lore stars have been like, what are your ideas on this? I don't know. So there's a good chance that in addition to the Sable Church of Londor getting a DLC, we'll get something that expands on the Profaned Flame.
Yeah.
If it doesn't end up just being content. Regardless of which, he grows these wings and he summons a phantom version of himself that does something I haven't seen before. It is like weaker, but it does everything he does before he does it. It's like the Ninja Gaiden thing, except the opposite. When you get those Ninja Gaiden shadows.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. This is great. When I realized that, like when I got them both in the same shot, I guess, or the cameras on them, I was like, wait a second. Oh, okay, yeah. Cool. So so I'm still dodging the clone, but I can use this to figure out like what more damaging thing is coming down the way.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you a chance to like micro practice. Like actually, it's weird because like I think on the balance I like this boss fight, but it's because I don't like the first half and really like the second half. It's kind of weird because his moveset changes too. It gets less combo based and he starts doing more spells.
Yeah,
which I appreciate. But yeah, his little Phantom version. A lot of people who I've talked to about this say like, "Oh, I killed the Phantom before it even did anything." And
really?
I'm like, what? Yeah, like, what damage are you doing? Because I can't do that. He's not as tough as Sulyvahn, but he's still significant.
Right.
The Phantom, but that's really cool. I really love the idea of like I'm sending a scout forward.
Yeah. But yeah, just seeing the just aesthetically seeing him turn into this root chaos angel, and fly around like this is it's reaching a really high pitch with the with that particular part of it.
Yeah, it's very cool. Like there's what did Bob? What was your experience with this guy when you didn't memory leak him?
Well, I only fought him with other players just because just seeing him float around without moving made him seem intimidating. But I think I did kill the clones before they could do anything. So I'm just learning about this kind of secret strategy now about because I think my buddies who I was fighting with they just zeroed in on the clones. I was like, I don't know what this clone does. Maybe he explodes or something. I better help them out. So. They killed the clones first. So yeah, this is all very interesting to me, knowing what I know now. But again, I have the Fume Knight bias, and it's like if it doesn't take me 60 tries, I like you. I automatically like you. So and I like his design a lot too. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. He looks amazing. Like he looks really intimidating and cool. And like we spent so much of this game in his shadow and this area specifically. Like this is a place where Dark Souls 3 does the thing that Dark Souls 1 does so well that I really love, where like you spend the time walking through the character before you meet them, kind of. Like you learn about the character, you're in their world, then you fight them, and it has this sense of presence to it. Yeah. Which I really love, and that's something I associate with like the best bosses and areas of the series.
Yeah, like you see statues of the boss you're going to fight, or pictures of them, or some sort of their impact on the world.
Yeah, like we found all of these people who take after him that have kind of similar movesets that we fought. We find like, he's slaving people. He's got this like river full of corpses and stuff. Like it's a bad scene. And then you actually see who's responsible for it. And it's really satisfying.
Yeah.
Super, super cool. Like it is a good boss fight. I like him. I like the next boss fight better.
I might too.
Yeah, but he's still good. Pontiff Sulyvahn, good. Bad person.
I was going to say, I was going to take that and make it into a ringtone.
Yeah. Yes.
That's some good ideas.
Yeah.
Great interior decorating.
If you could go back in time and kill Pontiff Sulyvahn as a baby, would you? Before you answer, think about the morality of it. So we know this guy, like I said, he found this area of old royalty. He imprisoned a god of this old royalty in an abandoned cathedral to be fed to the devourer. That's where we're headed next. And he has one sword that represents a force darker than the moon, and one that represents the profaned flame,
right?
Which he found in that profaned capital beneath Irithyll.
Yep.
And that's kind of what caused him to do this stuff. And we're going to be continuing this. This is kind of our first like 2-part episode because there's still
for the
Irithyll
season. We did Cathedral Ward, or not Cathedral Ward, but yeah.
But this is we're for the season we're heading in there. So that'll be next time, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Guest to be determined. So.
Yeah. So just kind of final thoughts on the area, Bob, before we let you go. Like just where does this kind of stack up in terms of like all of Dark Souls 3 for you?
I like it visually. Upon going through it again for the podcast and watching videos and stuff, I feel like it's a little too it's surprisingly linear once you unpack it all. And I kind of prefer the more sprawling Dark Souls 3 areas, which they introduced like right off the bat. So it's a nice change of pace, but I wish there was a little more to it. But again, I love how it looks, Santa's Nightmare Village, and I kind of want to hang out there for a bit. Like I was reluctant to leave just because I liked just the change of pace. I wasn't in a swamp or a forest. I was in this pristine, like Santa village, and I wanted to hang out with all my buddies there. So I do enjoy it. It might be up there, like maybe second or third place.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you, Kole?
Yeah, I dig it. It is one of those things where, you know, the aesthetics do so much, you know, to kind of paper over and obscure a lot of the issues. And, you know, the way it looks is part of the design, right? You know, going through it the second time and taking notes on it, and then just kind of like charting my progress on a map, so I could make sure I wasn't missing any items, because that happens sometimes when I go and do stuff for the show. Seeing the wireframe of this, you know, where you actually go, was a little bit disappointing. I think the visuals do, if they don't hide that, they distract you from it in a way that makes, you know, like, it's a super strong first impression that I still hold. But like, I think that, you know, in terms of play, really all that you have in this is those encounter designs, both in that first gauntlet and the second gauntlet, and what they opted to do with that, you know, and as far as it goes. But still, like, if we're taking everything, if we're looking at this holistically, you know, what this area is, what it means, and the way it presents itself, like, this is some top tier shit.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, it is one of, in retrospect and replaying it, you know, the first time through, when I kind of had just everything was really hard and it was all first blush, you know, just kind of moved through it and didn't think too much about the play. In retrospect, I think it is mildly too hostile with those knights, but it's in my top like 10 areas in Dark Souls. Like, it is beautiful. Yeah. And it is my favorite skybox in gaming of all time. And it is and I think what Bob said is really, really true, is that, like, it is a real change of pace. Like, this feels different in every way. Visually, it feels different, and from design, like, there are still secrets and such, but it is a weird way, and people will, like, you know, don't like this, but it feels a little bit more like a spoke design that you would find in something like Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
Like, it felt, you know, it felt a little bit like, oh, I'm just going to go down this path and see, like, I'm on a ride, you know, I'm going to see the haunted Irithyll ride.
Yeah.
Right. And that allows, since it's an area for such a big lore revelation, that makes sense, because they're choosing the order to present you these items in.
Yeah.
You know, like, they want you to, the dark moons are here. Interesting. Like, here's this painting. Like, they want you to get those things in order.
Yeah.
So it kind of has to be linear in order to tell the story it wants to tell.
Yeah. So it's designed like a 90s FPS.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the Half-Life the Half-Life train ride of levels, but I think that's okay every once in a while.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think that this stretch, the Irithyll to Anor Londo stretch of Dark Souls 3, is my favorite part in the game, and the part where all the callback stuff works totally for me.
Yeah.
So, super great. Bob, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. I also, as we said, do Retronauts. You can find that every Monday at retronauts.com or usgamer.net, or just search for Retronauts in your podcast machine. Talking Simpsons you can find at lasertimepodcast.com. And what else? Somethingawful.com. I do an article for them every other Thursday. I've written for them for like 12 years now, so you can read like literally hundreds of articles by me that might still be funny. No guarantees.
You're also the author of the famous Matt Groening took notes on making fun of people on disabilities tweet. On Twitter. I mean, that's a good tweet. I'm not criticizing the tweet. It is just so weird that blew up so big, when there's like a lot of things that you've done that you have more authorship of that are like funnier or more insightful that don't. Like, when I saw you joking about that, I'm like, oh, what was the original tweet? And I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to look a gift tweet in the mouth, but for the amount of effort I pour into my creative work, seeing something I just idly took a screenshot of off of my TV may be the biggest thing I've ever done on Twitter is kind of strange. Like,
it's pretty fascinating.
I would have taken better screenshots. Come on, people, give me a chance here.
It's pretty amazing. Pretty great.
I'm glad that I rediscovered that. It was pretty interesting reading those notes of his. If you don't know what we're talking about, Matt Groening wrote a lot of notes on storyboards for The Simpsons, and he was always the first one to point out, like, this is racist, this is sexist, don't make fun of handicapped people. Like, he was kind of censoring the writers, people.
Yeah.
So, but his censorship made The Simpsons great. So there you have it.
Yeah, well, social justice warriors. I've been reading some message boards, Bob, and I have some questions about you.
Okay, I'm going to bring Dennis onto the call. And
Oh, no. I don't have any debate notes.
Yeah. So joining us for Anne Orlando is Dennis Dyack to refute everything that Bob said during this episode. And that is sorry to poke fun at you about that.
No.
I'm really poking fun of Dennis Dyack.
Yeah, that's what
I honestly think that's the funniest thing, one of the funniest things that's ever happened to me. And I will never acknowledge him, but I think it's a hoot.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. Yeah. So thank you again for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
Oh yeah, it was lots of.
So we let Bob go as we do before we do our admin stuff, but we're really happy to have him. So public thank you to Bob.
Yes, we really appreciate it. Like, that's why we keep having him back. He's great.
Yeah. He's great. He's one of my favorite people. So next episode we're going to be covering the Irithyll / Anne Orlando, the next section of that, all the way up through Aldrich. So if you have anything to say about that, go ahead and hit us up at Duckfeed.tv /contact.
Yes, and then after that, just in case there's any lack of clarity, we're going to be going down to Irithyll Dungeon and the Profane Capital.
Yep. People have asked a lot of where we're putting the optional areas. My thought is that maybe after the Profane Capital, we do Smoldering Lake, and then we save the Dragon Zone for last because it's so hard.
Yes, I agree with that.
So next time we're going down and we're doing the Irithyll Dungeons and the Profane Capital. There'll be one episode.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Irithyll Dungeons is pretty. It's kind of a kick in the dick, but
yeah, it's really long. And Profane Capital is this game's version of what is it? The Lost Izalith.
Yeah.
Like, it is a big unfinished mess. So, and guest all to be announced. I'm trying to get somebody big for this Anne Orlando episode, and we will see if that pans out.
Yep.
So if you like this show, the best way to support it is to go to patreon.com /Duckfeed.tv. There you can see a range of rewards you can get, several of which that are not even mentioned. I was just thinking about this today, but we do things like I put up all the music that we've done, that I've done for shows up there as a post. Like, you get all that for free. There's a lot of things that you will get there, like little intangibles.
Yeah,
that are not even mentioned, just little fun giftlets.
Yep, little perks of backing us, and that's at all levels, I believe, right?
Yes,
you don't
it's just a blog post, so you can go on there and find that stuff. And I've given that stuff away several times, like collection like 30 or 40 different little songlet things, like those Teenage Dirtbag stings. You guys know you want those, or at least some of them. We haven't compiled all of them together, but
there's so many.
There are a lot of it. What's the longest running show in podcast history?
Of course.
So there are all those things, as well as just kind of extra episodes of Abject Suffering and access to our Slack channel at $2 a month, which is probably the coolest thing. We price it so cheap, but it is so neat. Is because we want more people to come hang out with the 500 and growing number of really cool people on this message board.
We are coming up on 1 year of the Slack channel being a thing. Can you believe that?
It's pretty. That's pretty bonkers.
Yeah.
Slackiversary. It is a really fun, good time. So and people there are uniformly kind. And
So I was about to say posthumous. That doesn't make any sense. A belated thank you to anybody who came out to see us in Austin. That is a Watch Out for Fireballs event. But it's kind of a network thing as it goes. We were at the Austin Classic Game Fest, and we were listening to this on the way back to your home. From that event. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we're going to be making another in-person appearance again for Watch Out for Fireballs, but it's a network thing in Portland around October the 23rd or so.
Yeah, don't think that just because it is for for Watch Out for Fireballs, you can't just come up to us and ask about Dark Souls and talk about Dark Souls. So we can do those kind of things. You can come up and ask us about Dark Souls.
Yeah,
for
and it's not just us. If you're like, oh, I hate these guys, but I love Jala, then Jala's going to be at the Texas one. Brayton and Nick are always stalwarts at the Portland one. Like it's a whole big thing.
Absolutely. So you'll be able to come out and meet us, and please come out. Like it'd be really nice to, even if you don't want to, if you're shy or you don't want to do anything, if you just want to come up and say hi, please come and say hi, because it's nice to meet people.
Yeah.
We like doing it. So we all have this thing in common, and it's fun to meet, kind of celebrate that.
Yeah.
Ratings and reviews are always helpful. So if you want to go on iTunes and leave us a rating or review, that'd be very appreciated. The other thing you can do is go ahead and talk about us on like Twitter and on message boards and the like. People do that. We see it when it happens because we're vain, small creatures, and we Google that stuff.
Yeah.
Our sadness knows no bounds. But so we see it when you do that, and it's really appreciated.
Yeah.
And
I think that's about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So until next time, what should they do, Cole?
Oh, I didn't look up any dialogue for this. They should wear layers, because it's
It's cold outside.
Put on.
Baby,
put on
I'm
your...
an outrider knight. But baby, it's cold outside. I'm spoiling for a fight.
Put on your booties, because it's cold out there. There we go. That's what I want.
Umbasa.
Umbasa.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon.
All right.
All right. Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay.